In the first lesson group of Unit 3, we focus on introducing students to weather and how strong storms happen. In Lesson 3.1, students begin with a welcome letter from the Green Ninja, and they hear about the unit challenge. Then students take a pre-assessment to gauge what they already know about weather and climate. They also show off their prior knowledge, make comments, ask questions, and say what they noticed when we examine the unit roadmap. We then walk through a brief introduction presentation. In Lesson 3.2, students finish taking notes on the specific areas affected and the weather conditions in the different places from the weather introduction presentation that we were doing in the previous lesson. And then we review the pre-assessments. Next, students participate in a discussion centered around the unit challenge to create a story warning family and friends about potential weather and climate extremes. Students view the adopted cities map visual, and they learn that they need to pick 3 adopted cities from a set of criteria. Finally, students will work in groups to brainstorm their prior knowledge about 4 different prompts. We'll be using this image of a seaside storm to help illustrate a major phenomenon that it snowed 43 inches in Syracuse, New York during the 1993 Storm of the Century. In Lesson 3.3, we introduce the Storm of the Century and ask students what caused it to be so powerful. There's a brief presentation to give students a sense of what the storm looked like and what it felt like as it approached and moved past. In the Chase the Storm activity, students then analyze weather data at different locations as that storm of the century moved across the eastern U.S. Now this is real-world data, and students are going to need to learn how to read weather maps with the same surface observation symbols that professional meteorologists use. In Lesson 3.4, we continue to chase the storm of the century and analyze data. Today, students are going to graph their data and look for patterns within a single weather variable and between them. So for example, here is the pressure versus time, different cities, 3 different cities across the eastern U.S. What patterns do you notice? What's similar about those 3 curves? And how do they differ? And what does that tell us about the way weather works? Next, student teams discuss how different study locations were affected differently by the storm. We come together and share our observations as a whole class. Now for homework, remind students to brainstorm their adopted cities so they can finalize their choice of 3 cities tomorrow. In Lesson 3.5, students view the adopted cities map visual, and then they formally identify their 3 adopted cities, and the teacher keeps track on the adopted cities sign-up form. Next, the weather data presentation describes different forms of weather data in more depth, including showing how meteorologists actually collect the data. Students then use one of the weather websites that's linked in that presentation to record data for the past 3 days in each of their 3 adopted cities using the Weather Notebook worksheet. We're just getting started with our understanding of weather, so next stop, a windy day at the beach.